Hello everybody, I'm Miss Lisa, and welcome back to another episode of Woke Art for Teens and Adults. Today we're going to be talking about African American voices, and I am going to be doing an art project that is inspired by the book Stamped: Racism, Antiracism, and You by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi. Kendi says the novelist Jason Reynolds adapted Stamped from the Beginning, which is Kendi's book, into this book for you. Reynolds says, this is not a history book. This book contains history, but is directly connected to our lives as we live them. This is a present book about the here and now. So it's not a history book per se, it's a present book. And in Stamped from the Beginning, which is the book that was written a few years ago, where Kendi really does, he puts forth all of his ideas about how the history of racism, both before time in America and in America, how racism, the roots of racism, have persisted for hundreds of years. And he talks about how racist ideas came to be. But he also wanted to find the source of racist ideas. And he found that, this is a quote from his book, Stamped from the Beginning. In Stamped from the Beginning, Kendi wanted to find the source of racist ideas. He found that the need of powerful people to defend racist policies that benefited them led them to produce racist ideas. And when unsuspecting people consumed these ideas, they became ignorant and hateful. So let's talk about now what is an anti-racist idea. An anti-racist idea is that no racial group is better or worse than any other racial group in any way. An anti-racist idea is group equality. Okay, there's no reason to say any group is better or worse. Groups should be equal. And an anti-racist America means no racial group has more or less, or is thought of as more or less. So this is what Kendi is trying to come to eventually. He says, building an anti-racist America, the first step is understanding and accepting America's racist past. And once we understand the past, we can acknowledge the present and work towards equality. So I'm going to give you a quote now, and this quote is how I started making this art project. Okay, Kendi says, there will come a time when we will love humanity, when we will gain the courage to fight for an equitable society for our beloved humanity, knowing intelligently that when we fight for humanity, we are fighting for ourselves. Maybe, just maybe, that time is now. So what I want to do with you today, I'm going to show you how to make a heart sculpture. And this heart sculpture to me is symbolic of what the book is about. These hearts are made with papers that are painted in different skin tones, and they're slightly individual, but yet they're very similar. They all work together. And here's a smaller version of two hearts. I think they look really nice together. And this one, I haven't glued them down to the support yet. Here's a different version, two hearts, both black and white. And the base of the sculpture is actually it's one of my experiments when I was deciding how to work with the evicted art. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch Woke 2, where we talked about poverty. And this was sort of my vision. This was a test piece here. And I then made a different one for my piece of art for that show, for Woke Art 2. And I figured that this is a better. I was having trouble visualizing the base for this sculpture. And here you can see I was just using a plain piece of mat board, which didn't really quite do it for me, but I wasn't sure until this morning what the problem was. To me, I needed to put more of the struggle into this piece of art. So from the struggle of racism, we can find now, if we come together and give love and receive love, have respect and understanding, that's what this piece of artwork is about now. So the yellow here are bits of hope in the chaos of our history's past. Blue could represent sadness. It was such a racism has permeated our society from the beginning, and now that we're starting to get to grips with how it all came to be, and a lot of that is thanks to Dr. Kendi, he's saying if we understand how it all started, and if we understand how prevalent and ingrained in our society it is, we can start to address it. And through addressing the problems of racism, we will finally, hopefully, get to the point where we can all be equal and loving. So with that, let me talk about the project. The project starts with my love of skin tones. I love to mix colors that make different skin tones because to me this is what I'm all about. I see the multicultural in everything, and I just love the way skin tones look together. And I love to make art out of, I love to paint people. I think every person is fascinating. I love looking at their faces. I love hearing their stories. And so this is kind of representative of what I love. Now we're going to take what I love and we're going to turn it into a piece of artwork. And I'll show you how to fold those hearts in a minute. First of all, I want to talk about mixing skin tones because I think skin tones are fascinating and I think you will find that too. So I've done this with these strips here were colored with watercolor paints. Today I've got some tempera paints because it works along the same idea. Skin tones are made out of the three primaries, plus white or black. So let's start by mixing orange. Our yellow is lighter than the red, so we might want to push a little bit more yellow in. We're going to mix a nice orange color to start with. And when I mix colors, and especially when I teach kids, I tell them don't mix the whole thing together. Mix just a bit in the middle there, and then you can always bring more of one or the other or both together if you need to. If you mix everything together at the beginning, then you don't have a lot of flexibility. Okay, so here's a good orange color. And now to that orange, we're going to add some blue. Let's take some blue. And let's see where that puts us. I always like to have a piece of paper close by so I can test the colors. And that's a beautiful brown. Now let me just take some of that brown and put it here, and I'll show you what happens. I'll take some of that and put it here. And I'm also going to take a paper strip I'm going to paint that strip. I'll leave it for a minute and then I'll do the other side. I'll just go ahead and do it now. Okay, let's take so we'll let that dry. And I'm just going to mix up some more of this brown color from my orange and blue. I'm trying to get the same color I had before. I didn't mix up enough of it. Let's put this, that's pretty close. Okay, so if I take the same brown and I mix a little bit of black into it, I'll be able to make a darker, richer brown. And let's look at it. It's a darker, richer brown, beautiful color. So I'm going to take another paper strip. And we'll talk about these strips in just a minute. And I'm going to paint that a darker, richer brown color. Now, if you have time to wait just a minute before you flip your strips over, you'll allow it to dry a little bit, which is helpful. Okay, now I'm going to rinse out my brush. And I'm going to take a little bit of the white and mix it into here. Let's see what happens. Okay, we get a very light color now. It's sort of on the yellowish side. I might add just a touch of red to that to pinken it up a bit. And that's another skin tone there. So let's get another strip. As you can see, it's much better to mix slightly more paint each time you do this than I'm mixing at the moment. Okay, so now we have 3 strips here, and I'm going to show you how we make even lighter. So with this remaining paint in my brush and with the paint here, which isn't much, if I mix this together, I've got even lighter. Okay, so we can go darker with the black. We can also add more blue into our brown, and we can go lighter with the white. Sometimes when we go lighter with the white, we might need to add a little bit more red or yellow to the mix. You'll be able to tell when you see the colors. If it looks too red, you might want to add a tiny bit of yellow. If it looks too yellow, add just a smidgen of red. Okay, so we're going to make all these strips, but I don't want to do that now because that takes a lot of time. And I can tell you what you're going to be seeing just by looking at the strips. And I think it's going to be more interesting for you to make your own experiments with color and skin tones. It's really fun. It's very satisfying to be able to mix different skin tones and use them in a painting. And what I want to do now is go forward from there with how to fold the hearts. Okay, I'm back. I cleaned off some of my paints and I've got these strips left. These are the ones we just painted and they're drying. But with these other ones, I'm just going to fold a few hearts so you can see how this is done. I've got different strips to choose from. I think I'll start with, let's start with this one. Okay, I've got my strip here. I'm going to fold it in half, like this. So it makes a V shape. Then I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to roll it. I'm going to start about halfway down the strip. I'm going to do it up here, I think. And I'm going to roll the paper down, up and down like this. I'll show you from the side so you can see it. It's not rolling all the way around the paper. I'm just using the pencil to give it a curve. So on the other side, I'm going to come down about 1/2 inch. And I'm going to roll back and forth. So it looks like this now. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue right here. I'm going to tuck those together like this and just hold that for a minute. And so while I'm pinching that together, at the same time I'm kind of pinching the bottom just a bit too. And you need to pinch it just for a few, maybe 10, 15 seconds. And there's your first heart. So let's make another one now. Let's try this one. Okay, so we're going to fold it in half. We're going to take our pencil and bring it down about 1/2 inch from the top there. We're going to roll it around and just roll it back and forth, just to help that paper get a curl at the end. Not at the very end, but about 1/2 inch from the end. Roll it over, rub, rub, rub. So it looks like this. And then we're going to put a little bit of glue here. And bring those together like this. Hold. Pinch the bottom a little bit. And there's your second heart. Fold in half. Open up. Take a pencil. Go about halfway down from the top. Roll it over. Up, down, up, down. Same on the other side. Turn it over. Roll. Roll, roll, roll. So it looks like this. Now this works much better if the strips are completely dry, which these are. That's why we're not using the ones we just painted. You would want to leave them to dry at least a few hours. So I'm holding the top together and I'm going to give the bottom a little pinch. You can also round these hearts out by squishing them this way. And let's do one more, maybe this one. Okay, so I'm going to fold it in half. Pinch it, open it up, pencil around about 1/2 inch from the top. Roll up, down, up, down, up, down, Other side, pencil, 1/2 inch from the top, roll up, down, a little bit of glue. Hold together. Give the bottom a little pinch. And there we go. Now I'm going to show you how to make the little stands that the hearts are in. I figured out how to make those hearts stand up. I'm going to show you how to make the little stand. So we're going to take a strip and we're going to fold it into quarters. So fold it into half first, and we can rip that in half. And we're going to do the same thing, take both of those halves and fold them again to make 4 quarters out of each strip. And now with each quarter, we're going to fold it into thirds. So we're going to fold one side and then the other side. And when you open it up, it kind of looks like a bunch of staples before you put it into the stapler. A bunch of staples laying on their backs. When you take them out of the box, that's what it looks like to me. We're going to take our little folded paper and we're going to fold both sides back half the length. So I'm going to take this one and fold it back halfway. And we're going to take the other side and also fold it back halfway. So now it looks like this. And we're going to put a little bit of glue on each. It makes 2 flaps. So we're going to put a little bit of glue on each flap. Just like that much, not too much. And then we can take one of the hearts and just sit it right in there and fold those 2 flaps upwards so that the heart is inside. And that's how we get those hearts to stand up. Makes a nice little stand. So this one has come undone. So let's make a couple more stands for these parts. So again, we're going to fold the paper into thirds. Go 1. And it looks like staples on their backs. And then I'm going to fold each side down like this. I just folded that one in half, can't do that. Thirds, fold in thirds. When I was a kid, I used to invent all sorts of things with paper folding. It's probably no surprise that I love doing origami. I also love making paper sculptures. I have a very simple paper sculpture class that I go to the schools, and the kids love it. I teach it in the schools, and there's usually at least one child, usually more than one child, that wants to know how to fold hearts. Everybody loves to fold hearts. But I've never made them with stands before, so this, if I show them how to do this, it's going to be even better. We usually just stick the hearts onto another part of the sculpture instead of making a sculpture out of hearts. So now we have 4 hearts that can stand. And like I said, I would put them onto this base because I think this is more representative of the history of racism in America and all of the turmoil and the hurt and the death and the pain, the bad policies, the inequalities. This is really a piece about turmoil, but it's also a piece about hope. Those little yellow parts in there signify hope. Yellow is a hopeful color. Now, what I would do, and I'm not going to do it at this point, but I would think about an arrangement of these hearts on the base of the sculpture and glue them down when I'm sure that I like the arrangement and that I'm seeing enough of the story underneath it to give us a feel for what I'm trying to do. And with that, I'm going to say, I hope you enjoyed this class. I hope you enjoy experimenting with mixing skin tones and painting some beautiful portraits someday. And if you have a chance to do paper sculpture, there's a lot of different things you can do with it. So take care and remember that if we work together to come together, if we work together and come together in appreciation and understanding of all cultures and all traditions, all backgrounds and histories, that we're going to be a much better people because of that. So take care, stay safe, and goodbye.